All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to cover Intercompany powered by Bizweaver. Bizweaver is a third party, or is an add-on that Third Wave has built for SAP Business One. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Let's take a look at our agenda. Today we're going to talk about an intro to the Intercompany tool. We're going to talk about business issues that our customers and our partners' customers have reported that really ultimately resulted in not only Bizweaver, but the intercompany solution developed within Bizweaver. The types of syncs that our intercompany solution includes and will kind of give as templates are master data synchronization, obviously item master, customer master, GL accounts, and so on. A sales processing workflow that basically mimics users entering in intercompany sales and shipping transactions between different business entities, and also finally an AP invoice processing transaction. Those of you that are attending today get the benefit of seeing how the workflows can evolve over time, as opposed to prior webinar sessions. They did a certain function based on some feedback. We added some stuff. You'll get to see some of that in action today. Then we're just going to explain a little bit as well about Bizweaver and some other tools that can be used by you, the partners, or your customers even. And then related, the use cases that pertain to your customers' businesses that can be solved and commonly used business use cases. Talk about some benefits to it that we think are really competitive advantages for Bizweaver, and our customers and partners have said that are competitive advantages of Bizweaver. We'll talk about reporting, so the consolidated financials, what's coming in future releases of Bizweaver, pricing, and how to get started and get cooking with us. So I'm not going to even talk to this, but you'll see Third Wave's been SAP, building SAP add-ons for close to 14 years now. We've been a partner since 2003. Add-ons started being developed in 2003 even, and so on. So just hopefully, either if you know us, great. If you don't, we're the currently the most mature North American Business One partner. We're currently the longest running Business One partner in North America. So why did we develop this? Well, our customers wanted workflow ultimately, and the reason that they wanted workflow is that they didn't want to make mistakes. They didn't want to be able to. They wanted to be able to grow without needing to add data processing users into the system, and that's basically what Bizweaver is. Imagine the perfect employee. You tell it, every time this happens, you do that, right? And the way I say it and the way I explain it to people is that could be intercompany processing. So every time company A needs to generate a purchase order to company B, will automatically process that order in company B. Every time company B ships the products to company A's customer, automatically record all those related transactions, the shipment, the receipt, the invoice, the AP invoice, etc., intercompany-wise, the eliminations, etc. Automatically record those. So Bizweaver is the perfect employee. It'll always do what you tell it as long as you tell it to do the right thing, and it'll always do it, and it'll always keep up, all right? So what it does it accurately. So it solves the issues of mistakes, omissions, and so on. It handles the labor intensiveness of data processing intercompany type transactions, and you can make sure that everything is stayed in sync. You don't need to worry about keying the item into 4 different databases. It will do that for you once you put it in one. And then finally, reporting across multiple SAP Business One databases. That's a pretty common issue for our customers that have multi-company environments. So the use cases for intercompany, most commonly needed for us is that our businesses usually have a core company, right? That company usually is either the primary procurer or sourcer of the goods, or they're the primary manufacturer of the goods. That's their business, right? That's the company, the parent, or something usually. And what happens is, in order to do business in different locations, or in order to do businesses in different industries, or through growth and acquisition, other related companies running on Business One need to buy through from that that manufacturing company, or they need to actually get the goods from them and have the they're basically like a selling agent for the core company. So in our demonstration, the entities that are involved, obviously here on the far left is the customer. The little cash register icon is going to be sort of one of those shell entities or one of those outside entities. A real common scenario would be we have a company, they're a U.S. customer, they make a good. And they have in order to operate and sell in Canada, they need to set up a Canada company, and that they want to have a different set of books for that company. But Canada is just a shell. They don't even take title to inventory. They do for 2 seconds while the goods are being drop shipped. So the scenario, the common most scenario is customer buys from, say, my Canada reseller company, and then I ship to the customer, which we'll see in the next slide. So that's the most common scenario that we've had, and seems to be what the most common scenario amongst our partners and customers is coming out. So how does that actually work? So in order, in the interest of time, we've got a little demo here that just kind of flies through SAP, and I'm just going to hit the play button here. So basically in this scenario, we'll simulate the cash register company entering a sales order for a customer. And you can key in, say, the customer's PO number, put in a doc date, select all the items that they want to buy, right? So you can select one or more, it doesn't really matter, put in the quantities that they want to buy. But in order to do this intercompany process, you do need to click the procurement generation wizard, or the button, to the checkbox to trigger the procurement generation wizard. And obviously, if you know from SAP, that's going to actually bring open the screen, and it's going to ultimately result in a purchase order. Just as a footnote, in our demonstration, this is going to, the next step, it's going to highlight it, but I'm going to override and make sure that I select the intercompany, the vendor that we've set up to be the intercompany supplier. All right. So once we go through this, it's going to ultimately result in a purchase order to my supplier, otherwise known as my, say, parent company. Right. So bear with, and we'll explain this one. So if I click open the link arrow, I'll see that purchase order. It resulted in purchase order number 1285 in the upper right-hand corner. But now if I jump over to the other company database, you'll see sales order 666 or 66464 for customer purchase order number 1285, and we'll actually see the goods that we, or the goods that we put on that intercompany PO, and it syncs it right away. So the next screenshot is basically how that workflow was deployed and developed inside Bizweaver. So for today's demonstration, this was built so that you don't have to have a live Bizweaver running, but basically I will jump over to my Bizweaver and show you how that was actually developed. Okay. So essentially, this one's a really simple workflow to develop. The first thing you do is you drop the query mechanism in here to say write a query, and the query in this case is a query to just say what intercompany purchase orders have been created that haven't already been replicated as a sales order in the next company in that workflow. And when it does that, once it gets a PO or a list of POs, the next step is to just loop through those. As you can see, there's a loop end, a loop beginning and a loop end. Get the data that we want to flow in between those two databases, map it in, and generate it. And all we're doing really is, and I'll actually drill into these in a moment here, we're basically coming through, prep the data, map it into the company database, and then we update the originating PO saying we've sent it to them. Okay. Now, the beauty about this tool versus some other WYSIWYG intercompany tools, and that's not necessarily a bad word, it's just a word to say they don't necessarily give you this type of stuff, is something like this. If you want to add more stuff into your map, I'm going to open up a different one. You simply just click the link arrows. I'm going to show you a different one in a moment here. Because this one we've done some development work on, so bear with me a minute here. You simply just pick the data on the left and map it to the data on the right. And say, I want to map this field to that field. So obviously, come on, you know you can actually pick any object in your sales order document schema, and whichever ones you want to work with, so you have your document header, your document lines, and your addresses, and you simply just take the data from the source, aka the buying company, and simply map it to the destination, the selling company. And obviously every single field in the system is in the schema, including user defines. So if your deployment includes, I have to have some special requests or special notes in the line items of them, we've got it covered. You can just map them from one to the other. And you could even do translations in between. So if I call this an X and they call it a Y, we can translate it. So anything that you can think up with respect to being able to alter those flows, you have the freedom to do it. All right. So the next, sorry about that, the next scenario is actually a little bit more complex. This is a scenario where we're actually shipping the goods in between the companies. This one takes a little bit longer to explain. So in this case, the manufacturing company will ship it through the agent, so kind of the package goes straight to the customer, but really processing-wise, it ships through that selling agent and ultimately goes to the customer. And what this workflow will do is I do the delivery, and I say I shipped it. And what that will do, Bizweaver will detect that I've done that. It'll fire up, and it'll say, okay, now I know what I got to do. Since I've got an established intercompany price, that delivery, I can automatically, Bizweaver will automatically generate the intercompany AR invoice. So due to or due from the reselling company. Also, on this company, it'll automatically receive the goods in, automatically deliver them back out to the company, the customer, automatically generate the AP invoice against that goods receipt PO at the intercompany price, and optionally generate the invoice if we know everything is what it should be and that we don't need user review or user intervention in order to generate that customer-facing invoice. We have Bizweaver that can generate that invoice. So let's take a look at that workflow in the demo. So in this case, I'm in that manufacturer company. We're going to then put the delivery in for the goods. And the beauty about this is you can be keying the delivery in SAP this way. You could be in Protomex or a warehouse management system that ultimately results in the delivery. We don't care. It'll work either way. So simply put, I post that delivery in SAP. Now, if I refresh this and I take a look, you'll see I just refresh it, look at the relationship map, you'll see this delivery was automatically closed. So bear with this while relationship map paints. And you'll see Bizweaver generated my intercompany AR invoice without me needing to do anything. Again, it's event and effect. So the event was I posted delivery. The effect was I ultimately want to auto-generate. Now in this case, we switched over to the other company and we review the purchase order to that intercompany supplier. And you'll see now Bizweaver generated, and I'm just going to pause it here, auto-generated 4 transactions for me. The goods receipt PO to receive them in, the delivery to get the goods out, the AP invoice to book the actual intercompany payable, and the AR invoice to bill the customer. Now, what's nice about this solution is it'll handle, and it is a drop ship in this case, it'll handle non-stock items, no problem. It'll also handle stock items. It'll handle batch tracked items, and it'll handle serial tracked items. An overwhelmingly number of our customers are doing this in batch tracked. We have a lot of customers that are selling food, drugs, and so on. And so for the correct, for FDA requirements, this company needs to have those lots in there. So they need to see, even though they never actually physically ever held that inventory, this company needs to be able to report lot X came in, lot X went out, and that's what this customer went out to that customer. So we do map the lot traceability. So if company A generates, is ship lot 1, 2, 3, this one automatically receives lot 1 through 3, ships lot 1 through 3, and we have the traceability in both places. So we could trace it all the way back to the manufacturing run from here. And again, we have live software here, so sorry, white screen of death here. So again, this workflow, I'll show you this live. One note here, you see how I've intentionally put the AR invoice function off to the side. It's basically very easy, and we'll see it's very easy to take these out. So if you said, no, we want to be able to manually invoice, you simply just delete these nodes from the workflow, and you're off to the races. So let's take a look at this one live, because there's a couple other things I'd like to show you here. I clicked the wrong one. I have a couple instances. All right, so this workflow is just kind of hanging around. Oh, yeah, this is good. I'll show you this. So this is the one we saw basically in the screenshot. So in this case, let it repaint. But step one is to figure out what deliveries have I created that have not auto-generated the other transactions. So I generated delivery X, and then it starts looping through. So if I generated 5 deliveries, it's going to run this 5 times, once for each delivery. So again, I prep the data, I map it. So again, you'll see the mapper where I can see the source fields over here, map them to the destination fields over there, and that's just the lines, and then there's the document header. Now, if I wanted to then go in and do some stuff for, the other things in the schema, like lots and so on and so forth, we can. But again, this one's just generating the intercompany AR invoice, so there's nothing to do with batches or serial numbers. Whereas, if we get down here, this is where we're doing generating the goods receipt PO in between the two companies, and you'll see now in this mapping schema, you'll see the object schema change. So I have both the header, the lines, and if we are shipping batches, I have those mapped, and if we are shipping serials, we have those mapped as well. So again, if you have other stuff that you want to put in here, so let's say, for example, your customer's now putting in new user-defined information on your batches or user-defined info on your serials, you simply hit refresh on this schema. It'll detect that those UDFs are there. You drag your arrow from source to destination, and you're all set. And as soon as you hit OK and save, it's live and running that way. Now, one thing I want to note is you'll see I actually have multiple versions of this. So the invoice to generate the AR invoice to the end customer is down at the bottom. Now, we've, based on some feedback from some other partners, they said, well, we'd like to be able to do is have, in this scenario, a third Business One database that we record our eliminations in. So simply put, we created a third Business One database. Right? This is just my little accounting ledger database. It's called OEC and Eliminations. And we've got a Bizweaver workflow now. All we added was really one mapper node with a little bit of prep and one mapper node that generates these journal entries for the eliminations. So in this use case, just to kind of get the benefit of this, again, in this scenario, let me just go to the last generated goods receipt PO. So in this scenario, this company had asked for $900 worth of goods, 1, 2, 3 items, and they ultimately shipped those goods to an end customer. And the manufacturing company, if I look at the last posted kind of AR invoice, right, you'll see those $900 worth of goods here. So what that ultimately did, those two transactions, we have, the accountant in me is going to say, if I run this person's financials, they're fine. If I run this person's financials, they're fine. But if I add them together, my revenue is overstated and my COGS are overstated. My net income is still correct, but my margins, technically, my gross margin is not, percentage is not right, and my revenue is overstated combined, my COGS are overstated combined. So what those journal entries do, if I look at my last posted related journal entries, you'll see I actually generated a journal entry to eliminate the AR, the intercompany AR, and eliminate the intercompany revenue. And then also the one prior to that, because of the order of operations, is the COGS. So on my manufacturing company, the COGS amount was $600-something. So you'll see I actually generated an intercompany journal entry to eliminate that amount. All right. So like I said, this is one of the big benefits of the Bizweaver-based intercompany process is they're very pliable. They can very easily be grown and made to whatever you need them to be, at your customer. And literally all you need to learn is some basics on Bizweaver, and you just got to be pretty sharp at writing some SQL. But the good news is we've delivered these for you. All you need to do is use them and alter them and deploy them. Okay. Back to my show. All right. The next scenario, a pretty simple one. This is one that not a ton of people have asked for. However, we have it. This is an example where an AR invoice comes into a central paying company, and in our case, we're going to use the cash register company to do that. And they want to be able to allocate some costs to the other Business One legal entities. So in this case, we would do that, and it generates the intercompany as a result. So, sorry, my Outlook's, not my Outlook, my PowerPoint. So I go in and I put an AP invoice in, select the vendor, normal AP invoice processing, say it's service-based, and we'll let our little video do it for us, save our time. And for some reason, I felt the need to override the vendor name. Now, in this case, what we're doing is we're actually putting in multi-lines. So line 1 is what I'm going to allocate an expense to my company. So I'm just putting in telephone expense, put in my share of the phone bill, and get it. Then when I get onto the next line, you'll see how we've built it so that you can charge a different amount to the other company. So just to make some notes, the guy's typing my other company portion of phone bill, okay, just so you can know what it says. Now in this case, instead of selecting my GL expense account, I'm gonna select the intercompany due from the other business, the other entity. So I'm saying due from demo supplier. And I type their portion for $720. Now, the next step is you select which company you want to charge that actual expense to, and this lookup is going to do a lookup into that company's chart of accounts. And in this case, I'll pick his telephone expense GL account, put in the posting date of the AP invoice, and post it. So simply put, that's going to result in my books, it's going to be basically a debit to expense, a debit to due from supplier, credit to AP. Now, we go over to the supplier company who's going to receive their portion, and Bizweaver will generate an intercompany invoice due to parent 720, credit, debit to telephone 720. So they get their share charged on their balance sheet or P&L. Right. And you got it. This one couldn't be easier. Sorry. It auto-advanced the slide on me. This one couldn't be easier. Figure out the journal entry that we need to make, map to the journal entry, post the journal entry, and be done with it. That one's a really simple one. And you'll see one like that couldn't be easier. All right. So I'm just going to look over. Nobody's asked any questions, so I'll just keep moving. So basically what we'll do now is just kind of talk about Bizweaver. So what tools we used in order to build this stuff out. So basically Bizweaver, in a simple sense, if you wanted to do simple SAP Business One stuff, you'd really just use the first two tools. One is SQL commands, so do a SQL query against a database. So let's say, for example, you wanted to write a workflow to every time I generate a SAP sales order, I wanted to then automatically generate an SAP production order for any items on that sales order that are make items. So you didn't want to go through Procurement Generation Wizard, you didn't want to do MRP, you just are a job shop and you want to auto-generate a production order for SAP for every make item on the sales order. You simply write a SQL statement that says, give me all open order lines that have not been pushed into a production order, and you use the SAP mapper, the second bulleted item, to say, map to a production order, here's the item, here's the quantity, here's the due date, etc., here's the customer, here's the sales order, link it up, and it'll automatically do it. It doesn't matter if you've got one item on the sales order or 50 items on the order, we can do it, okay? And that's a type of workflow that probably takes you between, if you're really good, 15 minutes. If you're not really good and you're learning, an hour, all right? Simple scenario. However, you might want to start getting into more advanced items. So you may want to put a decision in there. So in that scenario, you could say, are the items make items? Then create a production order. If the items are buy items, then generate a purchase order for me. Okay. So that may be a reason why you may do a decision. There's other things where you have to use a decision. That scenario I just used, you can use a decision if you want, but it's not mandatory. It's easy enough to not use it. But there are other instances where decisions are very crucial, such as you might want to do one that says, I want to scan a folder to see if there's a file there. If there's a file, then I move on. So you'd want to put a decision in there, say, if I found the file, then go do this. If there's not a file, then stop. All right, so there's some examples. The looper, you saw that earlier. That's the thing where you say, hey, I want to run an action multiple times depending on the number of lines. So in SQL word, in SQL language, that's called like a cursor, for example. If I want to do something over and over again for these 50 records, that might be like a cursor. And in VB, that might be like for I equals 1 to 20, go do this, something like that, like a for statement, next I. But we have it as a GUI, we have it just built right in. And you could do loops within loops within loops within loops. For things like e-commerce integrations, they're critical. Because, for example, you may do a function on an e-commerce integration that says, call my BigCommerce website web service. How many new orders are there? There's 10. Now you what have to do is you have to do a loop that says, okay, first order, go get the details. Second order, go get the details. Third order is go get the details. Because web services won't just say, go get all details for all orders that I haven't downloaded yet. It won't do it. None of them will do it. So you absolutely positively have to use a looper in that scenario. All right. There's a Crystal Reports tool. So one of the functions that you could do in here is, so for example, if I wanted to append something in my workflow, so for example, when we're shipping, if we said, that's great, you just generated the AR invoice, can I also send it to the customer? The answer is absolutely. All you need to do is use the Crystal Reports tool and then use the email tool to send it out. All right, so you can just easily append these 2 or 3 things to the workflow and do more with it. Right? It could even be generate a little packed slip paper and print it to the warehouse. Fine, you could do that. All right, next steps are file operations. That's the example where a lot of times you're building integrations to other systems and you want them to be file-based. Whether it's you're putting a file out there for it, you're scanning a folder, finding a delimited file or an XML file or something like that. There are file operators that can allow you to look and scan the folder, make a copy of a file, move the file around, etc. And then the next 2, file reader and file writer, are for the purpose of being able to open the files and work with them. So it could be generating a file with the file writer. So you're doing a 3PL and they say, send me an XML file or send me a flat file that is a list of all the orders that you've picked or you want us to pick, and we'll generate those pick lists, send it back to you in another flat file saying we did, and then you can record the delivery in SAP. You'd use these 2 pretty crucially for an integration like that. Right? I always say, for the most part, everything else that you haven't been able to do up there, use VB script. So if you want to do things like, say, simple things like, hey, how many days are there this month? You can write a little VB script to do stuff like that. Right? So basically anything else that you can't do north of there, you use the VB script for. Finally, there's the web service tool. That's for talking to web-based environments, e-commerce systems, Salesforce.com, other web-based CRM systems. Even we've got some people that do work with Teamsters because they do like job costing and they say, I need 10 resources. They actually do a feed. The Teamsters have a web service that you could say, tell me the people that you're requesting that you use and how many hours you need them for. And so we are actually doing an integration right from SAP to the web service to the Teamsters web service with this tool so that we could tell them I need Bob, Bill, John, Smith, and so on and so forth, and I need them from 9 to 5 tomorrow morning, and we can do automated scheduling like that. Right? So otherwise, we'd have had to done custom programming. We didn't have to do it. We just used Bizweaver. All right. Other business use cases, kind of touched on them already. Integrations with other systems like e-commerce systems, Salesforce.com, Sugar CRM. We've done a decent amount. We've got a ton of customers integrating Concur to Business One. So for example, T&E out of Concur ultimately lands as an AP invoice in SAP. That's using the Concur expense product. We have also other customers using the Concur invoice product where they actually do like AP invoice and document imaging in Concur, and then that generates a posted AP, paid AP invoice because they go in and they pay it in Concur, and we automatically integrate that and generate all of the corresponding journal entries in SAP. And other operational systems. So we've got other people doing other things that are not ERP business focused, but we do want to actually have it ultimately land in SAP. So for example, we have some customers who would say LIM systems and they want to be able to do integrations with Business One. You could do that. Integrations with other trading partners is a common use case. So 3PL warehouses is huge, right? So a lot of our customers, they don't actually operate their own warehouses. They have someone do it. So we do the communications back and forth with them with Bizweaver. Customers and vendors. So it could be simple as here, send a copy of this to a customer, like a printout as a PDF to them. Or it could be send electronic data to the customers, like a flat file of things like that. And same thing with vendors. We're doing a lot with consignment with this. And then finally, we have customers with various EDI implementations where they want to have some automation that the EDI tool doesn't do, that we use Bizweaver to automate. Things like cleaning up packaging records and so on and so forth. So the consignment goods example here, basically the scenario that is pretty common is that we have, I forget, we have consignment partners basically send reports to us saying what they sold. That automatically generates an invoice to bill that consignment partner, and then the reps go in and cancel and put in counted quantities, and ultimately that actually lands as kind of like counted delivery quantities and stuff like that in Business One. So obviously gives you an opportunity to do more stuff there. All right, here's what we've found as far as benefits with Bizweaver. Obviously, you see it's Business One centric. So really, we are Business One consultants. The reason we built this is because we want other consultants and other Business One power users to be able to do stuff that they would not be able to do unless they knew the SDK back-end type processes. And we built it with the intention of any consultant with drag and drop skills and some SQL skills can do it. So I like to say you can build, customize, and support it. All you need to know is SQL, the idiosyncrasies of SAP Business One, and how to use your mouse. You don't need to learn code. Right? There are some concepts like understanding how to work with variables that can help you, but really it's not that technical. We have pre-built workflows for intercompany. There is logging. So for example, if you try to post an invoice and it says, sorry, you can't do it, the periods are closed, you get a log answer with that. You can even email that log answer. So if for some reason there's issues with the Business One database and the DI API rejects it, it'll let you know. Or if you've done something wrong programmatically, it will let you know. So it is pretty good logging for support purposes. All right, it's easy to add and distribute new features. Obviously, you saw that. You can support and run stuff on multiple Business One servers. So if I have company one on one server and company two on another, we can have them communicate. We have no problem with that. People have asked if we could do different versions. It's not easy, but it's possible. You can have it retry workflows. It works in Cloud Control Center, aka CloudEX, and it does not use B1I. The rumor is B1I is very finicky. It doesn't work. It's tough to support. It's a little bit of a black box. We don't leverage it. We work with DI server. One of my last slides here is how do we do reporting, consolidated financial reporting. So we have some examples. This was an example of a consolidated balance sheet. We do it with Board software, so we are a Board software reseller, and Board has the ability to do P&Ls, business intelligence reporting, and it has the ability to report across multiple databases. So this is an example where we have, here's our consolidated, company A, company B, C, D, and so on and so forth, eliminations, and add them all together, and here's your consolidated. We have different versions of this. This is the one I thought was kind of the basic, the nicest looking one, but there's other examples where you can use what's called a selector. So you could say include this company and that company, and just on the fly check off which companies you want to do. So you could say include this, include all, include these 3, include these 4, and you could see, say, like a monthly P&L. There's a lot of different versions, a lot of different reports that you can deploy using that. All right, what's coming in Bizweaver? HANA support, SQL 2016 support, ability to launch workflows through a web service API. So right now our workflows are all triggered off of a timer, but in this case you'll be able to call them from other applications like a website or another tool. We'll offer some fixed length file reading and fixed length file formatting in the flat file tool, so they don't need to be delimited or JSON or XML. We'll have nested decisions. So first decide if you want to go this path, then decide if you want to go to that path, then decide if you want to go that path. Right now it's split to 2, or it's split to 1 decision. You can go into 5 different paths or 10 different paths, but you can't do a decision within a decision currently. More existing built-in web service connections. What does that mean? So for example, if I look at the web service tool, this is the web service tool in the palette here. Right now there are 2. Custom, so if I want to do a BigCommerce integration, here's an example of it, or there is actually a Salesforce built in, so it changes the UI layout of the screens, and it actually, this one is an example of get access token. So with Salesforce, you got to get a token first, and then you could start doing stuff within that. So when that happens and you connect up to your Salesforce site, this is going to show you all the Salesforce actions and things that you could do, and you just use the GUI to manage that. You don't need to write web service programs in order to do that. There will be more to come in future versions, and then more standard content in the intercompany development.
So, if you don't already have my, well, one quick thing before that, if you do happen to have any questions, go to webinars on the right-hand side. If you go to the questions section on the bottom right, please feel free to type in a question now. But my contact info, if you don't already have it, I'm nardini@twbs.com, and I'm extension 193 off of our main line. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, concepts that you're looking to see, whether or not we can, help you get that built out. We can definitely talk through what can work and, what you need to do to make something like that happen. But if you don't already have a partner agreement with us, I'll send that to you. You can review that. And once we get that signed, we'll give you all the detailed pricing, product info, not just on Bizweaver, but on our additional tools as well. So for Sago, some of you were on our webinar last week for a web and mobile platform. I'd be happy to get you some details on that. If you did miss that webinar, I can send you that recording as well. And if you have some interest, if you have some clients you think would benefit from this, but you're looking to see if you can, spark some interest in them or spark some curiosity of how, maybe some things that they're frustrated with that they're looking to find a solution, we'd be happy to do a webinar with your clients. And then maybe something on a broader, taking it a step back on some of the capabilities of the system, if they can see what it can handle, that might spark some interest on their side, just to give you some ideas on what you could build out. So I'd be happy to coordinate that with you. So again, if you have any specific questions, if we didn't happen to answer that today, shoot the question into the GoToWebinar, or you could definitely email me directly, and I'd be happy to get back to you.
No, that's all. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to, we will stop recording now.